With the ring of the bell, another day of classes comes to an end. Since my last class was music, I quickly make my way to the club room. Your last class changes day to day? To my surprise, I'm the first one in. I at least thought that Monica would have been here first, given her being the club president and all. Seizing the brief time alone I know I have, there we go. I take a seat at the nearest adjacent desk and take my laptop out of my bag to make some little tweaks to my latest class project. The project itself is nothing too out there. It's a simple piece, driven mostly by a steady bass line, a piano, and a kick drum. It's akin to some of my earlier hyperactive productions, but definitely more simplistic when it comes to the sound design. There is no A in definitely. I listen to it. I listen again. ... Maybe I should scrap this. Just then my head darts back as the door opens. It's Monica. I focus back on my laptop, praying she didn't notice me or my dilemma. However, I then hear her back softly hit against the door and a long, exhausted sigh. I glance back and her eyes meet mine.
Hey, Hallie.
Hey, Monica. I give her a gentle smile. You good? She smiles back.
Kinda. Just science class stressing me out.
I can sympathize with her. There's only 2 science teachers for our year, those being Miss Nakama and Mr. Kurosawa. Whereas Nakama is more youthful and her lessons tend to be more down-to-earth from what Sayori has told me, Kurosawa has a bit of a rep for being a hard-ass. I want to say there's supposed to be another E in whereas. This doesn't look right to me, I'm pretty sure there is. Let me guess, Kurosawa giving you a hard time? I pull out a chair for her. I don't even have to say anything as she starts to come over to join me. Her eyes then focus on the screen of my laptop.
What are you up to?
She seems curious. My eyes first start to the screen, then back to her. I feel my cheeks redden a bit. It's nothing, just a class project. Kinda thinking of starting over. She focuses a little more on the screen before her eyes flicker back to meet mine. A smile forms across her face.
Mind if I have a listen?
Sure. I smile back as I then hit the spacebar to start the track. Again, part of me wants to restart it, but I can't help but notice that Monica seems to kinda enjoy it, even her head. As soon as it began, the track comes to an end and, if on cue, the door opens and the rest of the club make their way into the room. Monica quickly turns to me, seemingly taken aback by the sudden entry of the rest of the club. Taken aback.
I'll tell you what I thought in a bit.
She smiles sweetly and I smile back. That damn irresistible smile of hers. Irresistible. She then gets up and starts to greet the rest of the club. I quickly close my laptop and slide it back into my bag. I then feel the air quickly leave my lungs as a pair of arms suddenly clamp around me. Suddenly. L-Y.
Hey, Hallie!
Sayori's voice rings into my ears. Hey, Sayori. I struggle to get my words out as I wriggle my way to freedom. Yuri then approaches me, a warm yet timid smile on her face.
Glad to see you didn't run away on us, Hallie.
I chuckle, returning the smile. You don't have to worry about me doing that. Besides, how could I run from a place as comfy as this? Natsuki soon interjects with a mix of her regular sass and a grin.
Don't get too comfy, though. You won't hear the end of it.
I know. Honestly, it's kinda amusing when Natsuki tries to... Though I have the feeling that if I said that, my nose would probably... Sayori lets out a giggle before speaking again.
Don't worry, Hallie always gives it his best when he's having fun. He even helps me with the busy work without me asking.
She then audibly counts everything I've helped her with.
Cooking, cleaning, my room. She
eventually loses her train of thought.
How dependable.
Yuri smiles gently at the pair of us.
I might be a little jealous if I'm honest.
I chuckle, feeling my cheeks redden. To be fair, this isn't the first time someone might have gotten the wrong impression about Sayori and I's friendship. No, Yuri, it's not like that at all. I smile back at her. Her room gets a bit distracting when it's messy. I then turn to Sayori. Not to mention the little incident with the bacon last week. Sayori disappears and glares jokingly and pouts.
Can we not bring that up?
I then whisper to Yuri. Yeah, she almost set her kitchen on fire. Yuri giggles gently. After that, everyone departs to what I assume are their usual activities. Natsuki's rummaging around in the closet. Sayori is having a cheery conversation with Monica in the corner, and Yuri's face is buried within quite a sizable novel. Her intense expression hints that she's been longing for this moment. Speaking of novels, I should probably pick up a book to read. After all, I did join a literature club. It's really the... I walk to the back of the room and start scanning the books located there. My eyes scan each title on the various spines. I mumble to myself, keeping my voice as quiet as possible, as to not... Exit music? No. Fallen Angel? No. I keep going until my eyes meet on a peculiar-looking spine. I go to pull the book off of the shelf to check out the book more thoroughly. That is until I feel a hand tap my shoulder and I spin around, quite honestly taken aback. It's just Sayori. I keep my voice low. Jesus, Sayori, you startled me. Sayori just giggles proudly before speaking.
Monica wants to ask you something.
She then practically drags me by my arm to the front of the class where, as suggested, Monica is waiting for me. Any harder and she might have yanked my arm clean off. Monica closes her notebook and looks up at me, smiling once more.
Hey, Hallie.
Hey, Monica. I find myself blushing. Sayori gives me a sly glance at him, or simply says, I knew it, but Monica doesn't seem to notice. Sayori says you wanted me for something.
Yeah, I do actually.
Monica steps up from the desk and gets...
I was gonna get some supplies from the art department and was wondering if you'd... maybe you want to tag along?
The way she says that sends butterflies down my stomach. But at the same time, I can't help but think. Wouldn't Sayori be better for that? Auto-ending text boxes.
Well, I'm still designing.
She stops herself and then lowers her voice a bit as to not get the attention of Natsuki and Yuri.
The posters.
I decide not to press either of them on it just yet. In that case... I smile at Monica. The look on Sayori's face from earlier remains. Maybe this can give us a bit... Monica beams at me.
I promise we won't be too long.
Honestly, I'd love to spend as much time as I can with her. Monica then turns her attention to Sayori.
You don't mind watching the club whilst we're gone, right? Well, I am the vice president after all.
Sayori teases playfully before plopping herself at the front desk. And with that, Monica lets Natsuki and Yuri know that the pair of us will be back in a bit before we make our way to the corridor. Once outside, I notice Monica looking back into the club with a not-so-subtle smile on her face.
It's just so relaxing in there.
I can't help but smile too. It is. I'm guessing that's part of the reason you started it in the first place. Monica turns to me.
Honestly, yeah. Most of the other clubs were mostly just arguing over publicity, the budget, and the festival. Not to mention the drama.
She chuckles as she looks back internally. Like, in the second year, you must have been part of every major club. And if I remember right, weren't you in the debate club at the start of this year? Monica laughs as we start walking down the hall.
Oh god, don't get me started on debate club. Worst mistake of my life.
The worst mistake of your life so far. Was that supposed to be an innuendo? As we get further, the conversation only grows. It's not too long till Monica is letting me know how most of the bigger clubs aren't all that they're cracked up to be. Eventually, we end up talking about the literature club once again.
I'd rather take something I personally enjoy and make something special out of it.
Her enthusiasm is just about as contagious as her smile. In that case, I'm surprised more people haven't joined yet. It is true, though. I mean, I know a literature club doesn't sound too enthusiastic. But for me, it's only fair to judge a club by its members, and at least from what I can tell, everyone else in the club seems really nice and close with each other. Monica speaks again.
That only makes events like the best of all that more important.
That much more important? Well, I guess that more still works.
Hopefully we can all grow the club before we graduate.
A thought pops into my head. So after that, would Natsuki become president or something? Monica giggles.
No. Natsuki's in the same year as the rest of us.
Oh, my bad. I feel my face flush red. But that makes me wonder why Natsuki is much more frail compared to the rest of us. It's a little concerning, but it'd be a bit odd of me to ask about that out of the blue. Eventually, though, we reach the door to the... It's a section of the school I have not visited since the first year. To be honest, I was never really any good at art in the traditional sense, being more creative with computers and music software, so I dropped out of the start of the second year. Something went wrong there. I noticed Monica peeking through the door, presumably checking if there's a club going on or something. You don't need this E. Yeah, presumably.
We're clear.
Monica calls me over as she opens the door, and I quickly follow her inside. Monica's already made her way to the supplies closet and has started searching. I, on the other hand, just idly stand there whilst taking the occasional glance at her. Eventually, she breaks the silence.
Hey, could you hold this a sec?
She holds out a small pile of cardstock. I take it, and she thanks me with the same sweet smile she's always had. In a way, I'm glad we're doing this out of normal school hours. God only knows the kinds of rumors that would spring up if anyone outside the club saw us. Well, that was a really long auto-ending text box. Although, admittedly, the thought of us making out in a barren classroom feels kinda...
Hallie?
Monica's curious tone snaps me out of my little daydream.
You okay?
Yeah, just spaced out a bit. I stammer as I try to cover my back. Luckily, she seems to buy it.
No worries.
She giggles as she steps out of the closet and shuts the door behind her.
It happens to the best of us.
I can't imagine you doing it. I chuckle.
Well...
She traces the edge of a desk with her finger, as if tracing back her thoughts.
It's happened to me before. Hell, when Sayori first came to the club, she got me napping on the front desk.
Now that sounds more like Sayori than you, Monica. I decide to tease her a bit.
Coffee only gets you so far, you know.
Yeah, she's right about that. Honestly, outside of the club, Monica seems really genuine and down to earth. Part of me wonders if anyone else has this side of her. Has seen this side of her? I mean, I'm guessing that everyone else in the club has, and her other friends have seen it.
I think we're all done here. Ready to head back?
Yeah. I make sure I've still got everything she's handed me, and we start making our... Why we didn't just use an elevator is beyond me, but I'm not complaining about spending more time with Monica. Before we start to reach the club room, I decide to ask about the track we listened to before club started. So, what did you think about the track from earlier?
I liked it.
Her eyes meet mine.
My only problem with it is that it's too short.
We both laugh a bit about that. I find myself blushing again. You blush a lot, bro. It's nothing, really. Besides, knowing you, you're probably better at music than I am.
I did practice piano a bit, but I wasn't any good at it.
The way she said that suggests there's more that she wants to hide from me. Maybe if we get closer she'll open up, but who knows if that'll even happen. We soon make our way back to the club room. Upon entering, not much has changed. Yuri is still focused on her novel, whilst Sayori and Natsuki are chatting. Sayori then notices us both and practically skips.
You did everything you needed?
Both Monica and I nod.
Yep, honestly, Hallie was a real help.
I give a smirk. It's no problem, really. Natsuki then pipes up as Sayori collects everything and takes it to the front.
What took you two so long? Were you making out?
As much as I'd love that to have happened, I can't help but be a little taken aback by how sincere she sounded. I glance at Monica and we both share a blush. But the more I look at her, the more I see a faint smile being delicately painted across her face. Maybe deep down she wanted that to have been a reality? Natsuki then focuses in on me.
Honestly, Hallie, I thought you'd be a pump-and-go kind of guy, but color me impressed.
She caps that off with an insanely cheeky smile. What? Pump-and-go kind of guy? What is she? I guess you have to think about it for a minute. Oh! My face goes an even deeper shade of red, one that my nerdy brain can only describe as almost a cacodemon. My eyes widen as well. No, Natsuki, By the time I gather myself, Natsuki has already gotten closer to me and brings herself up to my ear. Well, as close as someone as short as her can get.
It's obvious you thought about it.
I go to deny it, though thankfully I don't need to ask Natsuki's already trotted off safely back under the windowsill. I read this as ask, it was just as. I don't need to ask. Yuri looks over at her and sighs. Please show some decency, Natsuki. Forgot to see here.
I was only teasing.
Natsuki's voice whines as Yuri shakes her head. Can't deny that it was at least kind of funny. I don't have much time to settle down before Monica.
Okay, everyone. It's time to share poems.
With that, Natsuki and Yuri reluctantly get their poems out of their bags, as do I. Sayori pulls hers of her pocket, typical Sayori, out of her pocket. Monica then walks over to me.
You remembered to write a poem last night?
I did, yeah. I grumble. It was kind of the first thing I did when I got back. It's probably not any good. Monica then pats my shoulder.
Don't worry, I'm not really good at this either.
You sound pretty confident for someone who claims not to be good.
Well, that's because I have to sound confident. Doesn't mean I always feel that way, you know.
A faint blush then overcomes her cheeks.
Besides, I'm just looking forward to see how you express yourself.
The way she smiles at me, combined with how she said that last part, sends a rather pleasant feeling down my stomach. I can't describe it too well, but it feels really sweet. You too, Monica. She then strides off back to the front desk to get her notebook. Still feeling a tinge awkward about the whole scenario I have thrown myself into, I go to share my poem with Sayori. After all, she knows me better than anyone. With that in mind, I go. Hey, Sayori. Sayori smiles cheerily.
Oh, hey, Allie. You ready to share your poem?
I guess. Once again, I find myself mumbling. God, this is embarrassing. I lower my head to the desk, only for Sayori to do the same, lowering her voice as well.
About the poem or what Nazi said about you and Moan?
About the poems. I respond quickly, keeping my voice low enough to not catch anyone else's attention. Afterwards, I place my head on the desk, only for Sayori to pat the back of my noggin.
I believe you, don't worry.
I look up at her and I smirk, sliding my poem over to her. She flashes me a quick smile before starting to read my poem. In time, she finishes reading, looking quite proud.
This is a really good poem. It's got some nice feelings in it.
I chuckle with another smirk. You're just saying that.
No, I'm not. I made it.
She sounds sincere. Thanks, Sayori. Surely I'm not as good. I can't deny that it feels nice, though. Anyway, could I read your poem?
Go for it.
Sayori beams. I pick her poem off the table and begin to read it. The poem, titled Dear Sunshine, seems just like something you can imagine Sayori writing. The more melancholic connotations to the words aren't lost on me, either. However, the last line makes me smile to myself. Pretty sure there's a second N here in connotations? Can't recall. I want breakfast. I glance up at her. It's a pretty good. But did you write it this morning? She seems genuinely confused. And the N goes here. In response, I turn the paper in her direction so she can read it and point to the line. Her eyes scan the paper until they finally meet my finger. She blushes a little.
I don't remember writing that.
I give her a reassuring smile. Come on, it's okay. She smiles back as I continue. Besides, if you think about it, it still works. Sayori cocks her head a little to the side. The way I'm thinking about is that the subject of the poem is probably just waking up like they would any other day. Maybe the whole I want breakfast thing could be seen as them getting out of bed. She's nodding as if she's thinking it over.
Well, that actually kind of makes sense. You're sounding a bit like Monica.
I feel myself blushing slightly. Nah, you're just saying that. I chuckle nervously, a part of me hoping that Monica didn't hear what she said. Sayori simply shakes her head, her grin never leaving her face.
Anyways, I'm gonna share with Nazi now. In a bit.
In a bit. I'll be back at Sayori as she starts. I look back to Monica and notice that she's just finishing up with Yuri. Monica seemed quite eager to see my poem earlier, so it only makes sense that I should share with her next. Poem in hand, I get up and walk over.